films. John Ford's Green Was My Valley, and William Wellman's Oxbow Incident, and John Huston's.
Clint Eastwood, a name synonymous with Hollywood legend, is one of those rare figures who transcends the boundaries of film to become something of an institution. For over 7 decades, he's been the epitome of cool, an actor, director, producer, and occasional composer who has shaped cinema with his unrelenting passion for storytelling. If you were to describe his career in one word, it would likely be resilient. From uncredited roles in B-movies to an acclaimed director still active well into his 90s, Eastwood has remained as constant as the ticking of a clock, adapting and evolving, but never compromising his unique vision. Despite his reputation as the tough guy, the cowboy with a thousand-yard stare and the hard-nosed detective who didn't play by the rules, Eastwood has always been more than the characters he portrayed. Behind the gruff exterior lies a thoughtful artist, unafraid to probe themes of identity, morality, and redemption. And that's perhaps why his list of 10 favorite films, revealed in a rare and candid moment of reflection, is as eclectic and fascinating as the man himself. If Clint Eastwood's career were a dinner party, these 10 films would be the guests. Surprising, complex, occasionally difficult, but always leaving you with something to think about. They represent not just entertainment, but a lifetime of artistic influence, spiritual reckoning, and a profound understanding of what makes cinema transcendent. Bird the Jazz Elegy. First up is Bird, Eastwood's heartfelt homage to jazz saxophonist Charlie Parker. If you think Eastwood's wheelhouse begins and ends with bullets and cowboy hats, this film will make you think again. Directed with a jazz-like improvisational style, Bird tells the story of Parker's prodigious talent and his tragic self-destruction. It was a nice story about someone whose musicianship I admired so greatly, Eastwood said. As a lifelong jazz enthusiast, he even saw Parker perform live in the 1940s. This was a deeply personal project for Eastwood, one that allowed him to explore a life marked by brilliance and addiction. The film itself functions like an extended jam session, where moments overlap, memories riff on one another, and time itself bends around the melody of a man chasing perfection he can never hold. Eastwood constructs each scene with the precision of a musical arrangement, where silence carries as much weight as sound. Forrest Whitaker's magnetic performance as Parker earned widespread acclaim, and while the film didn't set the box office alight, it cemented Eastwood's reputation as a director, unafraid to step out of his comfort zone. People who insist on sinking into the abyss, he mused. There's something compelling about that. The cinematography bathes Parker's world in blues, ambers, and deep shadow, evoking the claustrophobic intimacy of jam sessions, where emotion matters more than dialogue. Eastwood insisted that the soundtrack use Parker's own recordings, digitally remastered so that each solo felt like Parker was playing live in the room. Despite modest box office numbers, Bird became a turning point in Eastwood's career, showing that the man once typecast as the man with no name could craft something lyrical, deeply human, and musically alive. Letters from Iwo Jima, The Enemy's Perspective. If Bird was a surprising choice for audiences expecting a steady diet of shootouts and standoffs, then Letters from Iwo Jima was nothing short of revolutionary. As a companion piece to Flags of Our Fathers, the film offered an unflinching look at the Battle of Iwo Jima from the Japanese perspective. It's hard to overstate how radical this was at the time. An American filmmaker humanizing Japanese soldiers in one of the most brutal battles of World War II. But Eastwood, as ever, was undeterred by convention. They were facing certain annihilation, he said. They never gave up hope. A lot of them would have loved to have been out of the war and home, just like soldiers from any nation. The story follows General Tadamichi Kuribayashi and a humble baker turned conscript named Saigo as they dig into the black sand of Iwo Jima, preparing for a battle they know they cannot win. They write letters home to wives and children they will never see again. Through their words, Eastwood captures the quiet dignity of men, stripped of propaganda, and reduced to what they truly are. Human beings terrified, loyal, and longing for peace. This empathetic portrayal of the so-called enemy underscored a universal truth about war. The soldiers on both sides are often just pawns in a game they didn't choose to play. The film was shot almost entirely in muted tones of ashen gray, a visual palette that mirrors the moral ambiguity of warfare itself. Eastwood later said this film was one of his proudest achievements. The dual narrative structure of Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima allowed Eastwood to showcase the futility of war from both perspectives, but it's the latter film that truly resonates. By focusing on the humanity of the Japanese soldiers, Eastwood created a film that was as haunting as it was necessary, a stark reminder that history is never as black and white as we'd like to believe. Million Dollar Baby, where grit meets heart. And then there's Million Dollar Baby, the film that perhaps best encapsulates Eastwood's ability to balance grit with heart. On the surface, it's a boxing movie, a tried and true genre that usually comes with its own set of cliches. But in Eastwood's hands, Million Dollar Baby became something far more profound, a meditation on family, sacrifice, and the moral complexities of euthanasia. It appealed to me because it was a story regarding family, he said, a search for the daughter he never had a relationship with, and the search for the father that was no longer there for her. The film, which starred Hilary Swank as an aspiring boxer and Eastwood as her grizzled trainer, was a critical and commercial triumph, earning 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. But its success wasn't just about the awards or the $216 million it made at the box office. It was about the way it made audiences feel, how it forced them to confront difficult questions about life and death, loyalty and love. The ending, in which Swank's character asked to be euthanized after a catastrophic injury, is one of the most gut-wrenching moments in cinema. Eastwood didn't just direct the film, he also co-produced it, composed the score, and starred in it. It was, in every sense, a masterclass in filmmaking. The cinematography emphasizes the claustrophobic nature of the boxing gym, where dreams are forged and broken with equal measure. Every frame is deliberate, every gesture meaningful. Eastwood's restraint as an actor, the way he conveys emotion through silence rather than speech, becomes the emotional core of the entire narrative. Mystic River, the inevitability of fate. If Million Dollar Baby was about the quiet tragedy of life, then Mystic River was about the inevitability of fate. Based on Dennis Lehane's novel, this neo-noir crime drama explored the ripple effects of trauma through the lives of 3 childhood friends. The film boasted a powerhouse cast including Sean Penn, Tim Robbins, and Kevin Bacon, and won 2 Academy Awards for Penn and Robbins' performances. The way sometimes fate deals a bad hand, Eastwood reflected, and it just keeps getting worse and worse, and there is nothing anyone can do. What sets Mystic River apart is its refusal to offer easy answers. It's a film about grief, guilt, and the way the past haunts the present, told with a level of nuance that only Eastwood could bring. The story's bleak, yes, but it's also profoundly human. There are no heroes here, just flawed individuals trying to navigate an unforgiving world. The setting, a working-class neighborhood in Boston, becomes almost a character itself, a place where childhood friendships are haunted by a crime that happened decades ago. When one of the men's daughters is murdered, the 3 friends are drawn back together, forced to confront not only the crime itself, but their own complicity in each other's lives. The film's narrative is constructed like a web, each revelation tangling the characters further in guilt and suspicion. Eastwood shoots the film with a palette of grays and dark blues, the landscape itself reflecting the moral murkiness of the characters' choices. Tim Robbins' performance as the traumatized Dave Boyle is particularly haunting, a man so broken by his childhood that he can barely function as an adult. Sean Penn's detective work, tracking down his daughter's killer, becomes an obsession that consumes him entirely. By the film's end, there is no victory, only a hollow understanding that some wounds never heal. The outlaw Josie Wales, Redemption in the West. For a man who made his name in Westerns, it's fitting that 2 of Eastwood's favorite films are steeped in the genre that launched his career. First, there's The Outlaw Josie Wales, a revenge tale set during the American Civil War. Eastwood plays the titular character, a farmer-turned-outlaw seeking justice after his family is slaughtered by Union soldiers. It addressed the divisiveness of war and how it can tear at heart and soul, Eastwood said. But the film isn't just about vengeance. It's also about redemption, about how even the most broken among us can find purpose in family. What makes the outlaw Josie Wales endure is its moral complexity. Josie Wales is not a traditional hero. He's a man driven by rage and loss, capable of great violence, yet also capable of profound compassion. As the film progresses, he gathers a makeshift family around him, a Cherokee man, a young man seeking revenge, an old prospector, and a widow with her daughter. Through these relationships, Wales begins to heal, not from his wounds, but from the hatred that drives him. The film's iconic image of Josie Wales squinting into the sunset became an archetype for the Eastwood Western. The lone gunman at odds with civilization, yet fundamentally decent. The landscape of the American frontier becomes a blank canvas upon which these characters project their desires for redemption and peace. Eastwood's directorial style here is lean and efficient, every shot serving a purpose. There's no wasted motion, no unnecessary dialogue. The story unfolds through action and silence in equal measure. The final confrontation between Josie Wales and his enemies is less about triumph and more about survival, about a man who has finally earned the right to lay down his gun and build something rather than destroy. Unforgiven, the reinvention of the Western. Finally, there's Unforgiven, the film that redefined the Western for a modern audience. As William Money, a retired gunslinger drawn back into a life of violence, Eastwood delivered a performance that was as raw and uncompromising as the film itself. The script was very intelligent, he said, and dealt with issues, gun control, and the struggles people have within. Unforgiven wasn't just a return to form for Eastwood, it was a reinvention of the genre itself, stripping away the romanticism of the Old West to reveal something far more complex. The film opens with a man killing a woman, a brutal act that sets in motion a chain of violence that can never be undone. Eastwood's William Money is a man trying to escape his past, to become someone else, someone better. But when financial desperation calls him back to his old ways, he discovers that some parts of ourselves can never truly be left behind. The film's narrative structure emphasizes the cost of violence. Every kill is followed by consequences. Every death ripples outward, affecting others. The cinematography uses rain and fog to obscure clarity, suggesting that moral truth in the Old West is murky and uncertain. Gene Hackman's portrayal of the brutal sheriff Little Bill Daggett is particularly unforgettable. A man who uses violence not out of necessity, but out of a desire for absolute control. The final gunfight in Unforgiven is one of cinema's great moral reckonings. When Money finally unleashes his violence, it's not cathartic or triumphant, it's devastating and complete, a moment where the audience realizes that violence, once released, cannot be contained or justified. It's no wonder the film won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Eastwood's direction here is masterful. He knows exactly when to cut, when to hold on a face, when to let silence speak louder than words. The film is a meditation on the nature of killing, the mythology of the West, and the price a man pays for living by the gun. The Gauntlet, Survival Against the Odds. Beyond his own directorial achievements, Eastwood has also cherished films that influenced him deeply throughout his career. The Gauntlet, another Eastwood-directed action thriller, represents his continued fascination with ordinary men placed in extraordinary circumstances. In this film, a cop must protect a witness through a gauntlet of danger, a metaphor for survival that appealed to Eastwood's understanding of human resilience. The film showcases Eastwood's ability to construct suspense through action, where each scene builds upon the last with mounting tension. His protagonist isn't a superhero, but a man using wit and determination to survive. The film's climax, where an armored bus becomes a symbol of human vulnerability and strength, demonstrates Eastwood's skill at transforming genre conventions into deeper statements about character and morality. Bronco Billy, The Carnival of Dreams. Among his lesser-known favorites is Bronco Billy, a film that reveals Eastwood's softer side. This scrappy, independent film tells the story of a traveling Wild West show and the romantics who keep the dream alive. It was about people chasing a dream, about maintaining innocence in a cynical world. Eastwood once reflected on the project. For a director often associated with moral ambiguity and grit, Bronco Billy demonstrates his affection for genuine human connection and the preservation of wonder. The film's tone is lighter, more whimsical, yet it maintains the same attention to character that defines all of Eastwood's work. The traveling carnival becomes a microcosm of American optimism, a place where misfits and dreamers find belonging. Sudden Impact, The Vigilante's Reckoning. Sudden Impact, in which Eastwood both starred and directed, represents another chapter in his exploration of justice and revenge. Harry Callahan confronts a woman seeking vengeance for a crime committed against her, forcing the detective to examine his own beliefs about right and wrong. The film's famous line, "Go ahead, make my day," became cultural shorthand for Eastwood's brand of justice. Yet, beneath the action sequences lies a more nuanced examination of vigilantism and the moral cost of taking the law into one's own hands. Eastwood's direction emphasizes the psychological toll of violence, showing how revenge consumes those who pursue it. High Plains Drifter, Myth and Morality. High Plains Drifter, another Eastwood directorial entry, fascinated him for its exploration of moral ambiguity. The mysterious stranger who rides into town could be an angel or a devil, perhaps both. The film was about how communities project their desires onto outsiders, Eastwood explained. This picture allowed him to experiment with Western mythology, subverting expectations about heroism and villainy. The stranger takes revenge on the townspeople, but his methods raise uncomfortable questions about justice and mercy. Eastwood's visual storytelling here is economical and effective, using landscape and architecture to suggest the townspeople's spiritual desolation. Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood's dark mirror. And finally, Eastwood's all-time favorite film reveals perhaps the most about him, Sunset Boulevard, Billy Wilder's 1950 masterpiece about the rot beneath Hollywood glamour. For a man who has spent nearly a century navigating the entertainment industry, this choice is profoundly telling. The film opens with a dead man floating face down in a swimming pool. Through his narration, we learn he's Joe Gillis, a struggling screenwriter who becomes entangled with Norma Desmond, a faded silent film star living in a decaying mansion. Norma dreams of a comeback. Joe becomes her captive emotionally and financially until he tries to escape, and she shoots him. Eastwood has called Sunset Boulevard his favorite film of all time. In interviews, he's praised its delicate balance between two opposing acting styles, Gloria Swanson's operatic theatricality and William Holden's grounded realism. "I always liked Billy Wilder," Eastwood said, "and I love the way two very different performances could coexist so perfectly. It's a comment that reveals a director's mind at work, someone who appreciates tension, not just in story, but in craft." For Eastwood, Wilder's genius lay in restraint. Sunset Boulevard isn't a melodrama, it's a quiet scream. The film was nominated for 11 Academy Awards and won 3, including Best Screenplay and Best Music. Today, it's regarded as one of cinema's greatest achievements. Not just a critique of Hollywood, but a love letter to its ghosts. Wilder populates his story with real silent-era icons, blurring the line between fiction and memory, dream and nightmare. Eastwood's admiration makes perfect sense. Like Wilder, he's a craftsman who believes storytelling should reveal human fragility beneath the myth. In Sunset Boulevard, he sees the ultimate cautionary tale, not about fame's rewards, but its cost. Wilder himself, an immigrant who fled Nazi Germany, knew the absurdity of chasing immortality in Hollywood. Eastwood, who has spent 7 decades navigating stardom, clearly recognizes that truth. The film's theme, Fame is Madness, mirrors Eastwood's lifelong caution about celebrity. He's always been wary of the spotlight, preferring to let his work speak. Norma Desmond's obsession is what happens when art becomes a mirror that never looks away. The story ends with Norma's delusional descent down the staircase, whispering the line that defined Hollywood tragedy. "All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up." It's a line that has haunted Eastwood for decades, a perfect encapsulation of how ambition can consume a person entirely. Looking at these 10 films, it's clear that Eastwood's career has been defined by a willingness to take risks. He's never been content to rest on his laurels, never allowed himself to be pigeonholed. Whether he's directing a biopic about a jazz musician or a war film that humanizes the enemy, Eastwood approaches every project with the same unflinching honesty and attention to detail. His choices as a filmmaker, and his choices as a man reflecting on what matters most, reveal someone deeply committed to truth over spectacle, to character over action. The objective, he once said, is to make everything sound like the first time it's said. This philosophy extends beyond dialogue. It's about approaching each film as if you're discovering cinema for the first time, stripping away the conventions and cliches that accumulate over decades of filmmaking. It's about approaching each moment with freshness and authenticity, regardless of how many times similar moments have been captured on film before. And that's the thing about Clint Eastwood. He makes it all look so effortless. But behind the scenes, there's a man who has dedicated his life to perfecting his craft, to telling stories that matter. These 10 films are more than just a list of favorites. They're a testament to a career built on passion, integrity, and an unwavering belief in the power of cinema. At 95, Eastwood shows no signs of stopping. As ever, he remains the master of his own story, quietly rewriting the rules as he goes. His influence extends far beyond the films he's made. It shapes how we understand what cinema can be when wielded by an artist unafraid to challenge conventions and probe the depths of human experience. The 10 films he has chosen to honor reflect a man who has learned that true strength lies not in triumph, but in vulnerability. That heroes limp, doubt, and sometimes lose everything except their integrity. Whether it's a boxer who learns compassion through defeat, a gunfighter who can't escape his past, a jazz genius chasing redemption through pain, or a Hollywood star descending into delusion, Eastwood sees humanity in its most honest form. These selections tell us that what he values most isn't power or even justice. It's honesty. The kind of honesty that strips away artifice and looks life straight in the eye. And as he reflects on nearly a century of life in filmmaking, that commitment to truth remains as unwavering as it has always been. A beacon guiding audiences towards cinema that transcends entertainment and becomes art.